What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel, where today we have another fantasy video, this time the fantasy league winners. I know I've been gone for a while. I just got this new job and it's taken some time to adjust to it, but we're back, we're better than ever, and we're ready to produce more fantasy football content for you guys. Now, up first, we have the quarterbacks, and this was recorded before the Week 13 game, so I'm not exactly sure how Brock Purdy's going to play against Philadelphia or the other players on this list, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with that guy, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. He has a favorable matchup leading to the playoffs. He's currently sitting at number 10 fantasy quarterback. He's facing Seattle, Arizona, Washington in 3 of his final 4 games. All 3 of them are in the top 13 in most points allowed to quarterback. He is, however, playing against Baltimore one of those weeks, but the matchup for him is so good in all of those other weeks that I really think that he could be that league winner for you, especially in the finals when he plays against Washington. And for our next quarterback, we have none other than Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson also has favorable matchups leading to the playoffs, and he's been pretty surprisingly good for the Broncos. Even when they were playing really poorly, he's still playing good. He's currently sitting at QB number 14 in fantasy. In his final 4 weeks, he's playing the Chargers twice, the Lions, and the Patriots. None of those are going to be games, I don't think, particularly, where he just scores 5 points. The Chargers allow the 3rd most points per game to quarterbacks, and the Lions allow the 5th most. And those are just really favorable. Patriots fantasy stats versus quarterbacks don't really tell the tale, I don't think, of how good he can be, and the Broncos have seemed to be clicking. They're doing fairly well, not that they've figured out what their offense is about. Up next, we have Rashad White, and I want to be the first one to say I'm sorry to Rashad White, because I talked a lot of smack on him at the beginning of the year when he was playing bad, or I guess the Buccaneers just weren't utilizing him the right way. He's currently sitting at PPR running back number 7. He's not finished under 13 points since week 6. He only has 1 finish worse than RB14 during that time. He's heavily involved in the passing game. He's averaged 4 catches per game over those last 6 weeks, and it looks like he's Baker's security blanket for checkdowns. So he's a big part of this offense, and he's only getting better and more involved. So I would say that he's a big league winner for a lot of people. If you can get him, or if your trade deadline isn't up, I think Rashad White could be very valuable to you. Next up, we have Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford is currently sitting at the 23 fantasy running back. However, he has some really good matchups that he's going to be facing in this back end stretch. He's going against Chicago, Houston, the Jets in those playoff runs. And all 3 of those teams are in the top half of the league in the most points given up to running backs. He's a very consistent producer. He scored for just about 11 points every single week since he became the starter, and that's on like 50% snaps. Joe Flacco just signed with Cleveland, so with a new quarterback and Flacco being a little older, I expect them to pound the rock a little more, which should provide Jerome Ford with ample amount of touches, and he should be a lot heavier in the pass game. So Jerome Ford definitely is one of those backs that you want to be on the lookout for as the playoffs approach. Next up, we have probably my only very large sleeper pick of this, and that's Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's finally finding his footing in the Seattle offense. Upon recording, he had just played against Dallas and played very well, and played against San Francisco and also played pretty well. It looks like he's starting to get targeted more. This is a guy that was very touted in the draft, and everybody thought that he was going to be a lot more involved than he has been so far in the Seattle offense, but he's finally starting to find his footing with Pete Carroll. He has 4 final fantasy games versus Philly, San Francisco, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh. All 4 of these teams are ranked 13th or worse in the points per game given up to wide receiver. So they're either 13th most all the way up to the most. It's a very large sleeper pick, but I think that if there's one player in the league that could possibly pull this off, I think it could end up being Jackson Smith-Njigba. Up next, we have Devonte Smith, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, this guy was already an established wide receiver too. He was already meant to be a starter, that sort of thing. But he hasn't played well up until this point, at least. He has like those first 6, 7 games where it's like, He kind of didn't live up to the expectations that everybody had set for him preseason. But he's starting to pop off now. Over the last 4 weeks, he's been killing it. He's finally picking up the steam that we all expected. Arizona is his worst matchup during the playoffs as far as scoring is concerned, and he's facing Seattle and the Giants to go along with it. With A.J. Brown constantly taking that first cornerback also, Smith is looking to feast. He has 3 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks, and he's dealing with weak secondaries. This is his time, and it should be his opportunity to take that next step and win your fantasy league for you. Next up, we have David Njoku. Now, I know what you're thinking again, and 2 Cleveland Browns, that's crazy, right? Well, maybe not. David Njoku, QB or not, he's a huge part of this Cleveland offense. He's been averaging 9 targets with 5 catches over the last 6 games. He's currently tight end number 11. He's a huge sleeper tight end. He doesn't get as much credit as I feel like he deserves, and he's only been getting better, I feel like, over the last couple of years. 3 of his last 4 opponents give up the 9th most or more points per game to tight end. Houston being 2nd, Chicago being 4th, and Jacksonville being 9th. I think that he's in a position here to really take over that tight end position and provide you with those 10 to 15 point ranges that you kind of want from a tight end, but you don't always get. I really think that he could be that guy. And last but not least, we have none other than probably my favorite player on this list to win your league this year. That's Trey McBride. He is Kyler's guy. Kyler loves his tight ends, and with Zach Ertz out and off the Cardinals, evidently, he's killing it. He's averaging 9 targets per game since Kyler came back. And Kyler seems to be forcing the ball to him. I don't know why he loves his tight end so much, but I'm not going to complain because I'm a Trey McBride owner, and I don't think anybody should. He's currently sitting at tight end number 12 with 5 weeks where he wasn't the starter, and he got 50% or less snap count. He's up there, and he's starting to make a name for himself. Look at McBride to carry your tight end spot this week, and for future weeks, when there aren't many great options to have. He is that guy. Believe in Mr. McBride. Wow, and just like that, this is my last video before hitting 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I've always kind of wanted to do this ever since I was a kid, and to finally get to even just that 1,000 mark just shows that my hobby and everything, people are enjoying it, and they are liking the content that I'm creating, and that just means the world to me. If you guys like this video and you guys want to continue to see more like it, make sure you guys smash that like button, comment if you're new here, subscribe. I love you guys. You guys are great. I appreciate you. Thanks for sticking around with me for all this time when I've tried to get into YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Peace.